Okay. All right. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Kamshin. Every 4 months, a new version of QGIS hits the ground with a bunch of new features. It can be pretty hard to keep up. So today we're going to talk about a few of the new features from recent versions, a few productivity hacks to improve your quality of life, and what's on the horizon for QGIS. And this is a frenzy. We're going to pack as much as we can into 20 minutes, and we'll see how we go. There's a lot to talk about. So I'm John Bryant from Mammoth Geospatial.
Yeah, I'm Nyall from North Road. I just want to point out, we didn't coordinate wardrobes here. This was accident, you know. If we kind of look the same, John, red shirt, me, white shirt. Completely different. Don't get us mixed up. Are we going to start?
Yes.
Yeah, so John and I, we did this last year as well. We have a strict time to fit into this 25-minute. There's a lot to fit in. We're going to time each other and start looming, basically. If I start going over time, John's going to come up behind me, loom, I'm going to do the reverse. Last thing is, we've got a lot to say. This is all sort of free stuff. You know, this is in QGIS now. You get it for free. QGIS is free. If you see something here that gets you excited, feel free to clap, cheer, woot, whatever, whistle, because then we know, you know, if you're excited by it. Ready to go?
Ready. Go.
All right, let's have a look. QGIS 3.38. Really exciting thing that came, especially if you are designing processing models, is the ability to debug these models by viewing output layers from any step in that model after you've run the model. So this really helps, yeah, thank you, for a kind of iterative workflow where you're like, I'm going to make a model. I don't want to have to run half that model again to see just what happened at this step because I might have made a mistake. So when you do that, you view it, it comes back into your map canvas and you can kind of see the output at that stage. There's also an ability to right-click and run just a bit of the model. So if you're kind of checking just a bit, you can kind of iteratively rerun those little bits. You can also see the log from any part of your model if it's coming up and giving you errors and that. You can kind of re-see that afterwards. Really makes model building much more friendly, much less kind of frustrating, I guess you'd say. All right, another thing that came in QGIS 3.40. So this is the QGIS 3.40 came out like 2 weeks ago. The ability to use CMYK colors. So this is really important if you're doing map design for print work and you have to send it off to a publisher. They'll generally need CMYK colors, and you want that if you want your color accuracy when it prints to look the same as what you kind of design it for. So in your project, you can go and say, this actually should be designed for CMYK in your project properties. You can set a color profile there as well. And then when you go to set colors for objects in your map, for your layers, your labeling, etc., you can do it with a CMYK color model. An important thing just to point out is this only comes in the Qt6 builds. So I'll come back to that at the very, very end of the session about what that means. You can export your CMYK projects to the PDF/X export, which is exactly what the publishers need, like for a print lab needs. And you can use color profiles, like I said. Another thing that you can do as well that came with this is previous to QGIS 3.40, you had just integer colors, so it's like 0 to 255 for the RGB, and that is a little bit limiting. Like sometimes you just can't get the right color in an integer color model. Now it has a higher precision color depth, so you can actually see here, you can kind of do decimal colors and such. HTML labels have been extended in QGIS 3.40 and a few of the prior releases. So now you can start doing things like there is support for the CSS text align attribute for left, right, center in the middle of your labels. You can see there's kind of like a mixed align label I've got there as an example. You can do superscript and subscript mid-label. In 3.40, you also can do images. So this is kind of a weird one, but you can embed an image in the middle of your label, and it can be a local one, it can be a remote link, it can be even a base 64 embedded kind of code in the middle of your label. And you get control over setting the width or the height, and then the kind of aspect ratio is scaled accordingly. Also got support for tab positions in labels. So now if you have a tab character in the middle of your label, you can get these kind of quasi-table kind of structures as a label, and you have control over the tab distance, so you can make the tabs wider or shorter. And in 3.42, not out yet, but coming in a couple of months, you can even have custom Custom tab stops. So you can say the first tab is at 30 millimeters, second one's at 50 millimeters, etc. Something really cool that came in QGIS 3.40 for people who do cartography work or labeling, there's this new concept of advanced labeling rules. So these are things that you can get in there and you can really start to fine tune exactly how the automatic labeling works in your maps. So here I've got an example of one of the rules where it's prevent labels overlapping features. And here I've said any labels from that train station layer can't overlap the features from a different layer, from my protected areas layer. You get a bunch of different rules you can pick from. There's one for pulling labels towards features. So I could say the labels from this layer, prefer to put them closer to features from this other layer. Or you can do the opposite and say, I want the labels from this layer to actually be pushed away as far as you can get them from the features in some other layer. John's starting to loom. I can also push labels away from other labels, but this is all kind of layer specific. You can combine multiple rules. So you see here in my project, I've got 4 different rules to kind of really fine tune how those labels go. This has all been written in a way that more rules will come in future releases. So keep an eye on that space.
Oh, well timed, okay. Okay, so a few of the new things that I've been spotting that are getting me excited. In the browser panel, we've got a couple of new providers. We've got a connection to stat collection. So as a couple of people were mentioning in the last couple of talks, spatiotemporal asset catalogs. Yeah, so previously this was available as a plugin, but now it's core functionality, so that's pretty nice. Cloud, so this is really great. So you can add browser panel connections to cloud storage providers. We've got Amazon, AWS S3, Azure, Google, and a couple of others. So you can add individual cloud, you could previously add individual cloud layers to QGIS before, but now it's extended. You can actually connect to like a bucket and browse and load the different assets. So before you could only have one set of credentials using environment variables, but now you can have per connection credentials, which is, yeah, really nice. So I like that one. Yeah. So annotation improvements, there are a couple of key ones here. So there's a whole set of enhancements around working towards unifying 2 different annotation frameworks. I think this is just going to get better and better. So one highlight, linked layer option, you can connect a annotation layer to another spatial data layer. So when you turn on and off the spatial data layer, the annotations turn off as well. And also a picture annotation type. So you can actually drop images onto your canvas in arbitrary locations. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to use this for, but I'm sure I'll find a good use for it somewhere. What else? Okay. Just one of these tiny little things that makes working in QGIS more fun. Middle click to open the expression builder dialog window. Before it was like kind of a click. Now you can just middle click with your mouse scroll wheel, the data defined override button to go straight to the expression builder. Layer tree filter for showing just the broken layers in your project. You open up a project that you built a couple years ago. It's got hundreds of layers. Half of them are broken. You can just click on the filter and it'll just show you the ones that are broken. So it makes the cleanup job a little bit easier. And this one, copying style categories for raster layers. So before raster layer, you could copy and paste styles, but it would just copy the entire style configuration over all at once. Now you can kind of have that more fine-grained one like you do with vector layers, where you can copy components of the style. All right, over to you.
Well, yeah. You went under time, John. All right, back to me, sorry. Vertical datums. This is not something super exciting, but maybe it's important. QGIS 3.40, thanks to a QGIS.org funding grant, has got increased support for this kind of concept of vertical datums. So in a project, you can set the actual reference system that you want for vertical coordinates, for like a Z values in that project. And then per layer, you can go in there as well and set, oops, that was the wrong one. You can set which vertical datum applies to each layer, so that QGIS can do all the maths and stuff behind that to make sure they actually line up correctly instead of just giving you the raw values. For 3.40, this applies to vectors with Z, and for point clouds. It's respected in elevation profiles like this. It's also respected in the identify tool results and in 3D map views as well. So all all those three areas, correctly use the vertical datum shift, hands it off to the proj library underneath there to do all the wonderful maths and stuff behind that. One thing to point out about this is that when it was added to QGIS, the approach was taken to be really explicit and really just give the user as much information as possible about how this is done. So it's not sort of all happening as a magic behind the scenes thing. You can see here in the identifier tool results that the Z value for those point layers, it's actually giving me the heights in both the original layer vertical datum and also that project vertical datum. So you can see there really explicitly, this is the height, this is the datum that's associated with it, to try and take away any kind of risk of misinterpreting that value. Really cool thing that came in QGIS 3.40 is a new symbol layer type for linear referencing. So this one makes it really easy to kind of add measures along the line. You can combine it with other layer styles and such. It's a symbol layer type. It's not a completely new symbol type. So you can combine it with dashed lines and all those other kind of dotted lines, marker lines, hash lines and such. You get a whole lot of control, like usual, for QGIS symbology over things like how that text is formatted. You can control as well the actual measure that it's showing. So you can either have it as like fixed Cartesian 2D distances. So you could say every 50 meters, I want to see that measure. Alternatively, you can do it based on the Z or M value in that layer. So you could say, I want to see the intervals of 1 meter Z changes, and it will linearly, that word, interpolate based on that, or at existing vertices. And you have control as well of either showing the total kind of running distance along the line or showing, again, a interpolated Z or M value. You also get this ability to say skip intervals. So this means you can combine kind of multiple linear referencing symbol types and get stuff like this where you have certain values shown in a different style than other ones. So you can kind of get like a ruler effect. Thank you. Another one that I'm quite happy to see, definitely needed improvement, but the PyQGIS documentation. If anyone here does PyQGIS development, the documentation is getting better and better with every QGIS release. There was a whole lot of new stuff added to the PyQGIS documentation for 3.40, which makes it better. This one here is really great. If you click on a class in the documentation now, you actually see this kind of inheritance graph that gives you an idea of the hierarchy of that class. Signals are better documented as well. So if you're trying to work out what signals or objects are and what kind of arguments they're all properly documented, and it's really nice and clear. Classes also organized by category instead of this big massive list of 1,000 different classes. You get proper function attribute blocks. Static methods are actually documented as static, so that helps as well. And then lastly, the things linked to the Qt documentation. So if there's a base class that's actually coming from Qt now, you can just click on that and it just takes you straight to the Qt documentation page, and you get all their fantastic sort of best-in-class docs. John. Another thing that we've got in QGIS 3.38 is for plugin developers, you can start using this Qt web engine framework instead of the old deprecated insecure WebKit thing. This is exciting if you need to put like a HTML view inside your plugin. The web engine one actually supports newer JavaScript and is a much more modern thing. So it's been demanded for a long time from plugin authors. What else have we got? We have buffers for markers. So this is new in 3.40, where you can actually take your marker symbol and basically add like the equivalent of a halo, text halo around a marker. Looks like this kind of thing, and it adapts to the shape of the marker. Am I out of time? That's a bit rude. I've got a lot more content here. I've got a few more slides to get through.
Oh, a few.
A few. A few. There you go.
Sorry now. Okay, just want to share a few productivity hacks. We'll do another one later, maybe an informal one. Yeah, a few productivity hacks. So I just want to say, like, sometimes it's just the little things for me that make all the difference. Tons of buttons in QGIS, and you can overlook them for years. When I teach QGIS classes, people often say things like, "I don't know what I don't know," or "I'm probably doing it the wrong way." And I'm a firm believer that there actually is no wrong way, but there are always ways to improve your workflow. So these are just a few of the little things that have made my life in QGIS just that much better. So keyboard shortcuts. This is a pretty obvious one, but and there are lots out of the box. But you can set your own. A couple I really like is C for copy style V for paste layer style. Just saves me a lot of clicking. And for real keyboard shortcut warriors, just add K as a shortcut to open the keyboard shortcuts dialog, and then when the mood strikes you, you can just add another keyboard shortcut. So I like that one. Also, you can save them as a PDF, print it out, stick it up next to your desk, and use it as a cheat sheet. What else? Right. So yeah, user profiles. If you're not using them already, you can have multiple user profiles and switch between them. They contain all your user settings, config, plugins, details, defaults, history, etc. So why use them? So a couple of reasons. You can use it for troubleshooting. You're running into some kind of a glitch. If you want to kind of isolate the problem and figure out why, you can create a new user profile and sort of separate it from any plugins or whatever that you've installed. Another reason, if you work with multiple clients or projects, you can keep those personas separate. So you can customize them with an icon, and since 3.32, it's easy to choose your profile and start up with the profile selector. So that's one I like to use a lot. Okay, moving on. So locator bar, that little search engine in the bottom left of the QGIS interface. You don't even need a mouse. You can access a whole world of hacks with just typing straight into the locator bar. So you can search for and open QGIS tools. You can search for and zoom to places using the Nominatum OpenStreetMap geocoder. And you can search for features using a layer's attributes. So tons of really nice bonus material in this little locator bar there. Processing history. So this lists all of the tools you've ever used in QGIS, including the full log for when you ran. Yeah, it's a little spying. Yeah. So yeah, full log so you can see whether it actually worked or not, as well as all the parameters used at the time, so you can run it exactly like you did that time, or you can make little tweaks and do slight variation. So that history is really nice. Also in the processing, this is brand new in 3.40, but processing favorites, you can choose your favorite tools and have them always pinned right at the top of your processing toolbox. Processing drag and drop. You can drag and drop layers into many of the processing tool dialogues. So the old way was to go through the dialog and click on all the layers that you wanted to use in the tool. But now you can actually just drag and drop collections of layers from your layers panel or from your file manager. And it will, this is great when you have lots of layers in your project, and many of them have the same name and you're not sure which one it actually is. So that's a nice little shortcut. The locking the scale. You want to zoom into the map to fine-tune your labels and callouts, etc. But when you do, the labels move around. So by locking the scale, you can actually set it so you're magnifying the map rather than changing the scale, so you can like perfectly position those labels. So decorations, 2 minutes. Layout extents, you want to see the exact edges of your print layout on the map canvas. There are a few map canvas decorations. One of them is layer extents. Super useful for manually placing those labels near the edge of the map layouts. Related, there's a tool where you can export the layer extents as a feature into a layer. Color shortcuts, you can copy colors from a button, copy a color from a button, paste it to another button. You can also drag and drop those colors between buttons. And if you hover on a button and use the scroll wheel, it actually changes the opacity. So save yourself seconds a day. Symbol color variable, if you've got like a categorized renderer, you've got a bunch of colors on your features, you can use the symbol color variable for your labels to match the colors of the features. You can use darker and lighter functions in the expression editor to make variations. Am I out of time? Should I stop? Yep.
I think you got a few more. You got 30 seconds.
Okay, one more. Attributes form, classification widget. When you're adding features, if you want to drop down in your attribute form, you can use a value map widget and type in the list of values, but it doesn't scale especially well. You have to manually keep your value list in sync with your layer categories, so the classification widget in the attributes form will let you actually automatically follow your simple layer categories. That's probably good. Yeah, all right.
Yep.
Thank you, Nyall and John. Okay, before you go,
All right. Wait. We're going to wrap. We'll wrap it up. Sorry.
Really quickly, what's next? On the horizon, Qt6 and QGIS 4, this kind of opens up a whole lot of questions for people, especially if you're doing plugin development. Be Rest assured, QGIS 4 is not yet on the horizon. You don't have to rewrite your plugins from scratch. It's probably still realistically a couple of years off, but in the meantime, you can download a QGIS build that is a preview build using the Qt6 library framework. There's a little tool you can get which will automatically upgrade a plugin, basically does 95% of the work for you and then tells you the 5% remaining you've got to do by hand. You can make a plugin that is compatible with both Qt5 and Qt6 builds of QGIS without much change in the plugin. So the intention is plugin authors run this tool, upgrade their plugins so they will work with the Qt6 builds. Over time, the official build will switch to that Qt6 framework, so we get a whole lot of new stuff. We get better support for Mac processors and all this kind of stuff, but we don't have to rewrite our plugins from scratch.
I guess just, yeah, so on Monday, 2 days ago, we had a meetup, QGIS Australia user meeting. Thanks, Emma Hain, for doing a whole bunch of heavy lifting on that, wherever you went, VP. Yeah, I don't know, we're trying to get things rolling a bit more with QGIS Australia, so yeah, check out the website if that's something you're interested in getting involved in. Yeah.
Thank you. Can each of you share a personal favorite new feature you have?
Favorite new feature?
Or something, one of the slides you might have skipped over?
I don't know. For me, it's got to be the processing favorites, the processing toolbox favorites. That's just sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go for that model builder view outputs run part of a model thing.
Does anybody have any questions?
What's your least favourite feature?
It's a trick question. There are none.
That will get me in trouble if I say, so I'm not going to say.
A different framing. What is your favourite feature that you've removed?
That's
Get rid of that bit of code.
That will also get me in a lot of trouble if I say, but I do have an answer. I just can't say it on record.
If we don't have any more questions, thank you so much. Round of applause.